Hey, Yinz guys and gals, gather round for a journey like no other. It's time to hop on board the Where Yinz Goin podcast, proudly brought to you by Dreams by Design Travel. From the rivers that meet at the point to form downtown Pittsburgh to the furthest corners of the globe, that'll be your compass, your confidant, your companion in that as we explore the wonders of travel. Kick back, relax on your couch, and let the wanderlust wash over Yinz as we discover new horizons and reminisce about old favorites. With Dreams by Design Travel by our side, the sky's the limit. Join Matt on the Where Yinz Goin podcast because when it comes to travel, the journey's just getting started. And now, without further ado, let's give a shout for your guide through the highways and byways of travel, the man with a map, the voice of the steel city, Matt Trader.
How Yinz doing? Welcome to the Where Yinz Goin podcast, brought to you by Dreams by Design Travel. I'm Matt. I'll be your host. So this is episode 1, kicking it off. So the purpose of this podcast is to talk about travel. We're going to highlight certain destinations, give some travel tips. It's not going to be very fact-based of there's 10 hotels here and the prices are this, and this. It's more of just a conversation about what you would expect to find at some places, what are the things you might want to see, what are, a few little tidbits about it. So that's going to be the nature of what we're going to talk about here. So to introduce myself, as I said, I'm Matt. I work as a travel advisor for Dreams by Design Travel. Through my life, I've gotten to travel pretty extensively. I've been to 20 states and the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. I've been to 11 countries. I'm initially from Pittsburgh, and so that led to the title of this podcast. So for those who are not familiar with Pittsburghese, the language of Pittsburgh, Yinz, Y-I-N-Z, or sometimes pronounced Yunz, Y-U-N-Z, is pretty much our version of y'all. It's a plural U. So if you're going to hear some Pittsburghese throughout this podcast, just because I have a bit of a Pittsburgh accent. If you want to learn more about it and some of the more obscure words, there's a book called Pittsburghese. It's written by a man named Sam McCool, believe it or not. M-C-C-O-O-L. Basically, Pittsburghese is a combination of English and laziness. So instead of pronouncing or fully enunciating a word like downtown, it's downtown. Instead of sitting on a couch, it's a couch. And that would be inside of your house, not your house. So, a bit of laziness. There are some other words thrown in there that just make no sense whatsoever. Like for bologna, we call it jumbo. Go figure. So, but for this first podcast, we will highlight Pittsburgh. I know it's not your typical big name destination that you want to go to for a vacation, but Pittsburgh is just an awesome city. And I want to call attention to some of the things that make it so amazing. So first, Pittsburgh is either the smallest big city you ever find, or it's the biggest small city. So it's right on that border of being a big city versus a small city. Pittsburgh itself has about 300,000 people, but if you include all of Allegheny County, which it resides in, and pretty much anyone in Allegheny County, if you ask them where they're from, they're going to tell you Pittsburgh, just because you're most likely not going to know the little town they're from. But Allegheny County has 1.23 million. So roughly another 900 some thousand people live around Pittsburgh. So while the actual population in the city is fairly small, if you take into consideration the whole county, which, it's not a huge county, it's a decent size. Pittsburgh is also kind of unique. That's the westernmost east city that you're going to find, or it's the easternmost Midwest city you're going to find. So it's right on that border of where you would say that the eastern United States ends and the Midwest begins. So sitting there right in western Pennsylvania. So it's sort of on the, sits in Appalachia. So we have some of that culture too. So there's a lot going on here. There's also a very big city of immigrants, years and years ago. So we have a very diverse mixture of different nationalities. So anyway, the geography of Pittsburgh. So as most people know, it sits on three rivers. The Allegheny and the Monongahela meet at the what we call the Point State Park, to form the Ohio River. So we do have the most number of bridges in the world. Pittsburgh has 446 bridges at last count, which beats out Venice, Italy, which only has 435. So we have a little bit more, depending on how many bridges have collapsed or been built or whatever the deal is. The rivers are a big part of the city. As I mentioned, there's Point State Park, a nice little park that's right there where the rivers meet. Has a neat little fountain that they'll turn on in the summer. There's a whole lot of activity on the rivers, whether you're going to ride a kayak or go jogging or walking along some of the river trails, or just rent another boat, speedboat or a pontoon boat. And we even have something called the Gateway Clipper Fleet. So there are a couple paddle wheel boats mainly. They range in size from just one deck one, like the good ship Lollipop, to some of the bigger ones. And you can take tours and go around the river, along the rivers with them. When we were in high school, we used to have a boat dance where the school would rent one of those boats and we'd have a dance on it. One time, one of my friends missed the boat, literally. That he got there late and we had to turn around and go back to pick him up. So, but the Gateway Clipper Fleet, they are available to be rented out, although it's a pretty decent price to do that, I imagine. But they do offer regular tours and cruises. So, and some of them have, you can get food on them and get a little, hear the highlights of the city, see this skyline, go up and down starting on the Monongahela. Usually, sometimes we'll go up to the Allegheny River, down the Ohio, so you get a nice water view of the city. The other thing you'll notice very quickly in Pittsburgh are all the hills. They sit just outside of the Appalachian Mountains, so we're not exactly mountainous, but we do have a whole lot of hills. One of the main things that you'll notice from downtown is the incline. So we have the Duquesne incline. A little bit farther up, there's a Monongahela incline. Basically, an incline is also called a funicular. It's an incline train. So it's a little car on a track that will go up and down the mountain. And used to have a whole lot more of the inclines on the south side of the city. They were mainly used to help workers get from top of the hill down to or along the river where they would have to work in the steel mills. And there's not steel mills, it's the still mills. What makes a funicular a little bit different than other incline trains is that it has two cars and they counterbalance each other. There's one's going up, the other one's going down. So it makes it a little bit easier on the motor to work it up and down. Now, the one big hill that sits that the Duquesne incline goes up is called Mount Washington, or if you're in Pittsburgh, it's Mount Washington, Wush, or some people throw a little R in there, it's Mount Washington, Worsh. But the view from top of Mount Washington is just fabulous. You can see the city just lays out in front of you. There's a lot of really, really good restaurants up there as well. Now, Pittsburgh is often called the city of neighborhoods, and there's roughly about 90 neighborhoods throughout the city. And these neighborhoods were created back whenever Pittsburgh was founded and all the immigrants were coming, pretty much by nationality, as happened in most cities. We have Bloomfield officially, but Bloomfield is where most of the Italians went. There's Polish Hill. There's Deutschtown, also called Dutchtown. It was the Germans. Also, an area near there is Spring Hill and Troy Hill. That's where a lot of the Germans settled. There's the Hill District, which is traditionally African Americans. And then Squirrel Hill is where it's a large Jewish population. Now, throughout time, the neighborhoods lost their unique identity exactly, and became intermingled and more diverse. Although some of them are still predominantly one population or another. For example, the Hill District is still mostly African Americans. Squirrel Hill is still a large Jewish population, although it's not exclusively that. So just by driving around and going to these different neighborhoods, you can get a different feel for it. So, for example, in Bloomfield, there are some amazing Italian restaurants. So, in the Georgetown area, Spring Hill, there are some restaurants still that are a little bit more with the German culture, the German food. And around Oktoberfest is where you'll find the biggest celebrations there. Speaking of food, some of the different areas of Pittsburgh are known for the food. For instance, Oakland, where University of Pittsburgh is, and Carnegie Mellon University. There's a couple other colleges over there. Chatham College is, or Chatham University now. So, well, colleges are another big thing. There's a whole lot in Pittsburgh. We can address that later on. But in Oakland, you'll get a whole lot of international food. So there are Asian restaurants specifically. There's one restaurant's called Halal Guys, Halal. So anyone who is of the Muslim faith, you can sanctified as food that's safe to eat for them. Halal is very similar to kosher for the Jewish population. Food has to be prepared in a certain way for it to be clean, and it has to be blessed for that type of thing. But doesn't matter what nationality you are, what religion you are, they have some really good food. With the Asian food over there, there's a couple of bubble tea shops that specifically my wife loves to go to. So we make several trips over there. Also, in the Strip District, which it's a strip of land along the river. That in the years and years ago, this is where the trains came in, and they would pull up to the one depot there, and they would unload all their produce, and so all the trucks would come in and back up and get it. And now that doesn't happen there, it's more, less the industrial thing, and it's a little more of a food destination. A lot of restaurants have popped up there, food stores, and with the food stores, you'll get a lot of Asian ones along with the restaurants. One of the most famous restaurants that's right down there, and they have other locations anywhere, other places too, is called Primanti Brothers. They'll give you sandwiches that are a bit unique. So that on these sandwiches, they'll put, whatever meat you want, between two big slices of Mancini's bread, which Mancini's bread, wonderful Italian bread made right in Pittsburgh. Besides just the meat and whatever else you're getting on it, they put big slice of tomato and the French fries and coleslaw right on top. They're famous for saying you can get your sandwiches made any way you'd like, as long as it's exactly the way they're going to make them anyway. So it's not exactly health food, but man, is it good. The cheesesteak is probably the most famous of their sandwiches, but they put big two thick slices of bread, put the steak on with some cheese, grab a tomato to throw on, a handful of coleslaw, and a handful of fries. If you want to take them off, you can, but just don't do it there. Eat it whole, smash that thing down, shove it in your mouth. It is delicious beyond words. So let's just leave it at that. But they have all kinds of other stuff too. You get a fried egg on it, kielbasa sandwiches, capicola. There's a fish sandwich they make. Great stuff. Also in the Strip District is a food store. It's called Woolies. That they're famous for the Woolly Whaler. So besides getting food there that you can prepare at home, they also can prepare it right there. So the Woolly Whaler is a gigantic fish sandwich. I believe it's battered. Well, I think they definitely have the batter fried ones. I think they have a baked option too. As far as I remember, it was cod was what they did. I'm not sure if they have other options. That's what we always got. And you can get lobsters there. So other great seafood. They prepare the fish. They're just sitting out on the ice, so it's fresh, because if it wasn't, you'd smell it. But they have, the live lobsters in the tank. They have other little more exotic foods of, like an eel or crabs, or some of the fish that are actually swimming alive. You can pick which one you want to eat, and they'll pull it out and fillet it for you, and you can take it home. They have a butcher shop there, fresh produce. Often whenever you go there, there's a line out the door that you have to wait in to get there. And they're prepared foods. There's two different doors you go in. One is when we're going to buy regular food at the grocery part. The other one is where you're going to go for the prepared foods. And there's two lines to get in. So whichever one you want to go in first, or whichever one you're going to go to. There's all kinds of other souvenir shops for the Pittsburgh sports teams there in the Strip District. Another one of the more famous uh, places to go is called Salem's, Salem. It is another Muslim market that you can buy. They have their butcher shop there. You can buy all kinds of halal food, and they're walking to the back where the butcher shop is. They have goat, lamb, things you're not going to find in a normal grocery store. And right next door, they have the grill where they will prepare these meals for you. And very, very famous place to go get lunch or dinner. Um, Fabulous food that has a little bit more of a Middle Eastern um, vibe to it. Actually, on their one wall, they have the wall covered with money from different nations that people will come in to give them just a few dollars in that currency, but they'll have it on the wall to show where people have been and where people come from. So definitely recommend that you stop in there. Besides the food, Pittsburgh has a lot of culture, specifically museums. Museums are often associated with the Carnegie. So, or if you're from other places, Carnegie. It's Carnegie Hall in New York, but it's Carnegie in Pittsburgh. And we have the Carnegie Museum of Natural History and Art that's in Oakland. It's not too far from University of Pittsburgh. It's kind of almost next door, a couple hundred yards away. Uh, Amazing collections there. That several years ago they just redid the dinosaur exhibit, and there's two brachiosauruses in there, or apatosaurus. I'm not sure what they are. Basically, big, looks like brontosaurus type thing, four-legged herbivores. They have a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and then they made a copy of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. So they have two skeletons there. One's real and one's a copy. Stegosauruses, Triceratops, just amazing, amazing collection of dinosaurs there. They have a big mummy exhibit for Egyptian mummies. They have one for the Arctic. There's Greek sculptures. They have a giant area for gems and minerals that you can go in and see rubies and diamonds and gold and silver and platinum. So really, really great learning experience, but it's just so interesting to go and see all this stuff. The whole second floor pretty much is taken up with different animals that you can see. So lions, tigers, grizzly bears, black bears. Some of them are specific for Western Pennsylvania and animals you would expect to find in the general area, but they do have more exotic ones. There's a couple giraffes they have in there. So really neat area. Also with Carnegie is the Carnegie Science Center. Now this is right on the Allegheny River, very near downtown, so a little bit different area of the city. This sits right next to Acrisure Stadium, the former Heinz Field, where the Steelers play and University of Pittsburgh play football. But it's a great interactive uh, area for kids. And even if you're not a kid, I still enjoy taking my little girl there. They have a giant, giant miniature train display that, oh, it's got to be at least 20 feet across and 50 to 75 feet long. It takes you different corners are different seasons. So there's spring, fall, winter, summer. And while not exactly Pittsburgh, although it is very much modeled after Pittsburgh, that they in the one corner for the summer, they have a recreation of Forbes Field, which was the Pittsburgh Pirates stadium from 1909 to 1971 that sat in Oakland, which right where the University of Pittsburgh is. It's right by where the Carnegie Natural History Museum is. And in the Pitts Hillman Library, you can go into it, and they have the home plate from Forbes Field that is framed in glass. You can see where it was, and there's still one of the walls from Forbes Field is still standing. Actually, it was the wall that Bill Mazeroski, Pirates second baseman, hit his home run over to win the 1960 World Series against the New York Yankees. So, which still to this day is the only Game 7 walk-off home run in World Series history. Joe Carter from the Toronto Blue Jays did it, but it was in a game, had a walk-off home run, but it was in Game 6. So we still got the Game 7 one with Bill Mazeroski. So you can go see that wall. And actually, every October 13th, it's called the not the hole in the wall gang. It's a Game 7 gang. That's it. So when Bill Mazeroski hit his home run, it was October 13th, 1960. So every October 13th, this group gathers there and they play a recording of the radio broadcast. And they started at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which was the time that the game really started. And at 3:36 p.m. is whenever Bill Mazeroski hits his famous home run. And the group the crowd has grown, and over the years, on milestone years like the 60th anniversary, it was pretty big. And the 50th anniversary, and Bill Mazeroski himself has come to actually join the crowd on a couple of occasions. He's getting kind of elderly now, so that's unlikely to happen in the future. But it's been a great experience for people who are baseball fans, not even just Pittsburgh Pirates fans, but baseball fans. So anyway, with the big train display, they'll have Falling Water, the famous Frank Lloyd Wright house that is maybe about an hour and a half drive from Pittsburgh. But there's also another one, another house that Frank Lloyd Wright designed. It's called Kentuck Knob, which is very close to where Falling Water is. It's right near an area called Ohio Pile. They have a river that runs through it, the Youghiogheny River. A lot of people go there. That you can do whitewater rafting, people go camping. So nice little area for a day trip from Pittsburgh. Also in that train display, they have an old park called Luna Park, which is a recreation, or a supposed to be a recreation, it's not exact, of old amusement parks that were in Pittsburgh. And it's actually in one amusement park that is in Pittsburgh, Kennywood, just outside of it, West Mifflin. They have an area called Lost Pittsburgh, or Lost Kennywood, that was modeled after this Luna Park as well. So it had some of the more old-timey rides. But it's a really neat area. It has the trains going around. It used to be in the Buell Planetarium, Buell Science Center. It's not too far away on the north side of Pittsburgh, or if you're from Pittsburgh, the north side, Norside. Now it's where the Children's Museum is. They expanded to take over where the old Buell Planetarium was, and that's where the train set used to be put up every Christmas. But now it's at the Carnegie Science Center. It's up all year round. They do close it in November to refurbish it and change a few things and clean it up and make sure everything's working right. But then they open up right after Thanksgiving, and it's a huge thing, especially around Christmas, but also year round. Science Center also has its own planetarium. You can actually see the old planetarium projector down on the lobby of the Carnegie Science Center, which is pretty neat. Of course, they have a much more advanced and updated one, but they have a couple of different rotating exhibits to come through. They've had the Lego exhibit where you can see different Lego creations. They had one recently that was on the Titanic. They had one on different mummies from around the world. So uh, one I think was a Pompeii exhibit, from Mount Vesuvius erupting. So neat stuff. One of the other things that's kind of unique about the Carnegie Science Center is that it has a submarine, a World War II submarine. It's the USS Requiem that is retired, obviously, but you can go on and take tours of it. And it sits right outside of the Science Center along the river. So it's a real neat thing to walk through. Of course, they modified it so that it's a whole lot easier to get down. You don't have to go down the ladders, and they have steps and everything. And a few of the things are modified for safety and convenience. So, but definitely worth a look to go through the submarine to see what it was like to serve on a submarine back in World War II. And the sleeping arrangements are just amazing, how small they are and cramped. It seems like, it's hard that a person can even just lay down. Just don't wake up, too quickly in the morning or in the middle of the night and sit up, or else you'll bang your head. Sometimes sleeping like right on top of and below or between torpedoes. So really interesting. Another thing about the Science Center is they have an Omnimax, which is basically an IMAX theater, except the screen is a bit curved. And so they have different shows that they'll put on there. Some are about nature. One we've seen so many of them, like the Rocky Mountaineer. So getting on the train, they'll go through the Rockies and seeing it in, IMAX quality um, projection on this screen. This surround sound is just amazing as well. One thing that they do there every Christmas or Christmas season is they'll show the Polar Express. So most of the movies are roughly around 45 minutes to an hour, but sometimes they will have special events where they do show longer movies. Besides that, not too far from PNC Park, where the Pittsburgh Pirates play, is the Andy Warhol Museum. And Andy Warhol, famous artist from Pittsburgh, for his soup cans and Marilyn Monroe pictures and his prints and everything like that. But there is a museum that it's an art museum. It has some permanent displays, but there's a lot of rotating things to come in too. So if you're interested in art, Warhol Museum, not too far from the Science Center, PNC Park and Acrisure Stadium kind of share parking lots, so they're right next to each other. So it's maybe a half-mile distance between this Carnegie Science Center and the Warhol Museum. If you go a little bit further and on the other side of the river, down right outside of the Strip District is where the Heinz History Center is, which is devoted pretty much to Western Pennsylvania history, going back all the way to the founding of Pittsburgh and the Revolutionary War times and Pittsburgh's importance in at that time. It's famous. You hear the whole thing of George Washington slept here, but George Washington was in and around Pittsburgh. We have Fort Pitt, which was formerly Fort Duquesne when the French owned it. There were several battles. Fort Necessity is not too far away in Uniontown. It's about an hour or so away. So if you are a history buff, the history, especially the Revolutionary War history of Pittsburgh, is just amazing. The Heinz History Center has its own sports area that is devoted all to the sports of Pittsburgh. Not just things that happen in Pittsburgh, but sport athletes and team owners and whatever who came from Pittsburgh, like Chip Ganassi, easier for me to say, with auto racing, or Arnold Palmer is with golf. He's from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, which is not too far away. Again, it's over where not too far from Ohiopyle and Falling Water and Kentucky Knob, so hour and a half outside of town. That's where St. Vincent's College is, where the Pittsburgh Steelers have their training camp each year. Speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Pittsburgh has three professional sports teams. Football, it's the Steelers, and baseball, it's the Pirates, and for the Penguins for hockey. Pittsburgh is unique with their sports teams. So it's the only city that has three teams in the three major sports of NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, NFL, where all three of the teams have the same color. So in other cities, there are some of the teams that will share the same colors, but not all of them. So, for example, New York that has so many teams, the New York Giants and the New York Rangers are both red, white, and blue, but they don't have all the teams that are red, white, blue. So it's pretty neat thing about it. Now, the Penguins did start as a more of a bluish and white team, but dating back to even before that, there were hockey teams that were black and gold. So in the 1979, 1980, they switched to black and gold. I think trying to go off of the popularity of the Steelers and Pirates, who were winning World Series and Super Bowls at that time. But beyond those three sports, we have also the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, which are our soccer team, the USL Championship League, or it's based off, or it's a subsidiary of the USL, United Soccer League in the United States, but it's more of a sub league for them. So they play in Highmark Stadium, which is right on the river, right on the Monongahela River, pretty much right below uh, Mount Washington, not too far from the incline. And it's right next to a place called Station Square, which is another area that has a whole lot of nice restaurants. And, Station Square was train stations. It's right where you can get on the Gateway Clipper fleet as well. Also, we have the Pittsburgh Passion, which are a women's professional football team. And they've won a couple of championships in the past 15 years. So they're a pretty good team. We also have, as I mentioned before, many, many colleges. But if you are interested, we do have Division I football with University of Pittsburgh, Duquesne University, and Robert Morris University. And then also Division I basketball with University of Pittsburgh and Duquesne. So whatever level of sport you want, other than a professional basketball team, which we've had in the past with an ABA team, the Pittsburgh Condors, they won a championship like in their first year of existence, only lasted a few years. But we have all that. One of the other really, really big things with Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania is high school football. Then on Friday nights during the fall, it's a big thing to do is to go to these high school football games, and the evening news, or the late night news that night, or 11 o'clock news, just wall to wall sports with the football teams. Years ago, there was a sports broadcaster, one of the anchors for one of the local stations, named John Fedko, and the Fedko zone was a big thing. Of you wanted to get on Fedko and have him come to your game and have him mention you. And they had a helicopter that would fly over and get aerial footage of the stadiums, which is a pretty impressive view at night, having the stadiums all lit up and all the people there. Beyond sports, although if you like gambling, we do have a casino, Three Rivers Casino. It's right by where the Carnegie Science Center is and Acrisure Stadium. So if you need a gambling fix, hop on over. But on a more cultured level, we do have the Cultural District, which is about 14 square blocks in downtown. In there are 6 theaters that put on about 1,500 shows each year combined. So that's 250 shows per theater on average. So pretty much, let's see, that's 5/7 of the night. So 5 nights each week, you can expect to have a show at each theater on average. So definitely have a chance to see some neat stuff there with the Symphony. Pittsburgh Symphony is amazing. I've gone to a couple of their different shows. The John Williams ones, just outstanding. The person who is a conductor, his first name is Lawrence, I believe. Lawrence Lowe, last name Loh. He was Korean descent. He was born in California, but he was raised in Carlisle, PA, in now lives in Pittsburgh, conductor. Oh, great personality. With John Williams stuff, whenever he did the Jaws theme, he put a life vest on. Or if he was doing some of the Star Wars stuff, he had a lightsaber as his conducting baton. For the Indiana Jones, he put on the fedora. With for the Jurassic Park, he came out in an inflatable dinosaur suit. So amazing personality, really makes it fun, especially if you have kids who you're going to bring, and it really can help get them into music. Another thing they do is they'll show a movie, whether it's Harry Potter or Star Wars or Back to the Future, and they will play the music live during the movie. And I've gone to a few of those before too, and I'm kind of a mixed feeling for it because one, the music and the experience is absolutely amazing. But I'm always torn that I end up watching the orchestra more than I end up watching the movie. So make sure it's a movie you've seen before, so you're not going to have that conflict of missing something important. So beyond the symphony, they do have put on plays. There are art galleries in that area. So if you're into the theater, definitely have more than enough options to stop on by. If you like being outdoors, we have many parks, whether it's amusement parks or just regular parks just to go to. I mentioned before is Kennywood. It's a historic park that was over 100 years old. It was initially just a park, just a grassy area. It was the end of the line for the trolley cars. And so people would on a Sunday, take the trolley out all the way to the end, and they would just have a picnic there. And it was named after Kenny's Woods. The guy who owned it was Kenny, and it was his wooded area. And then over the years, someone decided, hey, let's put a merry-go-round here. Let's build a little concession stand. Let's have a dance hall. And then it kind of built up naturally. So now it's this amusement park. They do have some rides there that are over 100 years old. They've been obviously refurbished and have a lot of upkeep to them. But they do have some amazing new roller coasters. One that opened just a few years ago is it's called the Steel Curtain after the famous Pittsburgh Steelers defense in the 1970s. But this thing will flip you upside down in every which way, and it's an intense ride. They have a couple other ones that have been there for the racers. It's two cars that go side by side, and you race each other through it. It's actually a unique track that it's one continuous track, in that you start on one side, you end on the other. And so if you were to ride it twice, you would go through both things, but right next to each other. That's one of the original ones that kids will get to ride. It's kind of a rite of passage of riding the Jackrabbit, which is also unique. That has a double dip. That you'll come down a hill, you'll kind of flatten out for a bit, and then go down another hill right away, and you'll fly out of your seat. And the train cars actually feel like they're flying off the track. So it's a bit of an intense ride for a relatively mild roller coaster, at least by today's standards. Both the Racer and the Jackrabbit and the Thunderbolt, which is another one, are all wooden coasters. So the Thunderbolt was rated the #1 roller coaster in the U.S. back in the 1980s, and it's another rite of passage of you work your way up to being able to ride one of the roller coasters, then going up and then being able to ride the Thunderbolt used to be the biggest one. Some of the other rides that are really old is called the Turtle, which is a little green. And it was went by a couple of different names. One was like the Humblebug, I believe, is a generic name, but it goes around a circle, goes up and down. You'll slide around a lot on your seat, so it's a little bit of a thrill, especially for younger kids whenever they start getting into some bigger rides. They have a pirate ship ride that swings you back and forth. The Phantom's Revenge used to be called the Steel Phantom. There was the fastest roller coaster in the world whenever it was built. Get up to 70 miles an hour as you go down this big hill. That the track for this actually goes through the track for the Thunderbolt. With Pittsburgh's unique hills and the topography and everything, that the Thunderbolt is pretty unique. That whenever you start off, you don't go up a hill like you normally do, going up the lift hill. It starts on the edge of a ravine, and you go down a hill first. And as you go down that hill, it will go under the uh, Phantom's Revenge, and then another part you come, the Thunderbolt goes above it. So the Phantom's Revenge goes through the track for the Thunderbolt, which is really, really neat. But Kennywood, just a fun little amusement park that has some great history that you can experience, but also has some updated rides. So it's a whole lot of fun for pretty much anyone. Not too far from there is Sandcastle, which is a water park in Pittsburgh. Of course, it's only opened during the summer, so it has a bit of a short season to operate. We have the Pittsburgh Zoo and Aquarium, which is amazing. The aquarium area was remodeled a couple years ago, and it's just fabulous. It is open year round, although you don't expect to see too many of the animals out and about in some of the winter months. As I mentioned before, there's for the more of the natural parks, Point State Park, right downtown, right where the three rivers meet. Great area, especially in the summer, just to go and have a picnic, just to sit out, put your feet in the water, around the fountain, take pictures, just go for a walk, spend the evening. And during the 4th of July, that place is absolutely packed to see all the fireworks. Um, just north of Pittsburgh is a little town called Zelienople, where the Zambelli Fireworks company is headquartered. So you get fireworks made for pretty much places all around the U.S. They come from right in Pittsburgh. So, of course, Pittsburgh's fireworks displays are famous for their grandeur. Both on the north side and the south side of the city, you have North Park up north, obviously, South Park in the south. Uh, North Park has a big lake in the middle, and it has about a 5 mile trail that goes around the outside of this small lake. You can do some fishing on the lake. You can go boating, stand up paddle boards, um, things along those lines. But people go running, walking, bike riding around the lake. There's pavilions you can rent, have your picnics there. There's a football field that is used by some of the grade schools and high schools for, um, well, football, soccer, lacrosse. There's a golf course there, a 18-hole golf course, a little 9-hole par three batting cages, driving range. So it's a really, really nice area. There's also another area that has soccer fields. South Park has a herd of bison. Believe it or not, there's a herd of bison just outside of Pittsburgh. They have also a very um, pretty awesome mountain biking trail. So if you want to go off road, you can do that. Now, if you want to learn more about Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh PBS station, WQED, uh, starting back in the 1980s, they got a new director. His name was Rick Seebeck. He's still there. He started making the Pittsburgh History series documentaries. And so there's one about Kennywood, um, one about things that aren't here anymore, about things that used to be in Pittsburgh and went, are gone. Another one called Things That Are Still Here. People who grew up in Pittsburgh, it's still around from years and years ago. Uh, things that were invented in Pittsburgh or by Pittsburghers. So, for example, the Ferris wheel, the inventor was from Pittsburgh. The Big Mac was actually first made in Pittsburgh. So, this whole history series, great way to learn about Pittsburgh. There's one called The Strip Show about the Strip District. But just hearing Rick Seebeck's voice, there's something about it's very calming. It's just inviting for you to get into it. That he really knows how to tell a story about often some very, very mundane things. He actually has some national shows too that he'll take you, like ones about amusement parks, One's called the hot dog programs, about different hot dog shops around the country. Um, a sandwich, one about sandwich shops that comes with a book that has recipes for some of these sandwiches. So it's really neat to look into. They started a series about Pittsburgh called Nebby. So there's some more Pittsburghese. Being Nebby or Nebnose is pretty much a busybody, someone who's always trying to get into someone else's business and spread gossip. So if you're of the Jewish faith, it's a Yenta, basically, someone who's Nebby. But it was a way to do some shorter documentaries about uh, things that happened in Pittsburgh. They're along the lines of the longer documentaries from the Pittsburgh History series. Going back to the parks, there's a small historic park that's in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. It's called Idlewild Park, and they have some rides that came from Kennywood after Kennywood decided to get rid of them. They kind of got passed down to Idlewild. It has a really nice little kids area. It's a smaller park. They have a water zone, the H2O splash zone. So if a little bit out of the way, if you want something that's typically a little bit less crowded, you're not going to get any really big roller coasters there or any big high thrill rides. But for little kids who are going to go just on something or just spend a day, it's really really nice. And one thing they have there is the Land of Make Believe. So Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers grew up. Fred Rogers grew up in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and his show was produced at WQED for however many years he did it before he retired and then passed away. But they have part of the Idlewild Park that is devoted to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the Land of Make Believe. And you get on a little trolley and you go into the Land of Make Believe through the tunnel, just like they did in the show. And you would see Daniel Tiger and the King Friday the 13th. So, real neat little thing. So now that I've pretty much sold you on Pittsburgh, well, it's been about 45 minutes, I believe, going. So we'll call it a day for today. Hope we come back for the next uh, episode. We'll go into a little bit more popular destinations, and we'll give more travel tips in general whenever we do some of the other episodes and visit different destinations, virtually at least. If the first time you're hearing us, which most of you will be, we're going to be on pretty much anywhere you can find your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, you know, wherever else you want to look. You can follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Instagram. It's at Matt with DBD, MATT, the word with DBD. You can also email me at matt@dreamsbydesigntravel.com, matt@dreamsbydesigntravel.com. Hope you enjoyed this little trip to my hometown, Pittsburgh. Hope you come back and visit us later on, and we'll ask a question again of where Yinz going. See you next time.